Okay, this is now going through the book Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes by me, Pete Rogers. We're going through the letter B. We're on Samuel Butler. He lived from 1835 to 1902. He was sort of a grouchy Victorian age version like H.L. Mencken in his own style. He overlapped a lot with Queen Victoria, who lived from 1837 to 1901. So the first quote from Butler: "A man's friendship are like his will, invalidated by marriage." Yeah, marriage really changes it. You start having a baby, you start only hanging around with the wife, go to work, drive home, deal with family stuff at night. Okay, Samuel Butler. "The ancient mariner would not have taken so well if it had been called the old sailor." So Ancient Mariner, of course, is the poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Ancient Mariner also is a great song by Iron Maiden. It's a great heavy metal song, the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Okay, Samuel Taylor's next quote: "Books want to be born. They come to me and insist on being written." That's what it's like to want to write a book. You got this feeling, I really got to do this book. It's in your head and you're like, I can see it all works. I got to do this book. And so then you just energize yourself to do the book. Men, we can't give birth to a baby. So giving birth to a book is a little bit like for us delivering a baby. Okay. The other thing you need to write books is you need to have large blocks of time. Like when I was an imaging guided surgeon, I was always on call, getting paged all the time, having to deal with cases, having to go in the hospital on my days off, my call days. Whereas once I started focusing more on neuroradiology, I'm busy at work, but then when I'm not work, I'm free, I'm home, and I'll do the book. Okay, next thing. He says, "If an art student is to do any good, his development will epitomize the history of painting." Yeah, and that's how it should be for a lot of things. A good student of art starts out by learning to draw the basic shapes. Then they start to study the works of the great masters. They should try to copy the works of the great masters. And once they can do that reasonably well, they keep on progressively adding in their own little twists and turns and synergistic things and putting it all together in an eclectic way. That's how you get good. Same thing like with a writer. To get good at writing, you should read tons and tons of different authors, get a feel for it, find one you like, and get ideas from them. Like from Oscar Wilde, I get the idea of chiasmus. He's really good with that. From Voltaire, the idea of how he sets up a joke, antithesis, all this stuff. Studying the rhetoric, forms, you get ideas. Okay, here's a good one from Samuel Butler. "Brigands demand your money or your life. A woman wants both." Yeah, and that reminds me of the good Rodney Dangerfield line. Rodney Dangerfield said, "What's the difference between having an arranged marriage versus marrying for love? You can spend the rest of your life blaming your parents instead of yourself." Okay, Samuel Butler continues, "Life is the art of drawing sufficient conclusions from insufficient premises." Yep, you always have to extrapolate and think. You hardly ever get complete information. Here's another great one by Samuel Butler. "A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still." Okay. He continues, "It has been said that God cannot alter the past, but a historian can. And it is perhaps because they can be useful to him in this respect that he tolerates their existence." And I would also say, whenever you read history, you always got to look at who's writing the history, because they're going to have some type of bias. Maybe it's a small one, but maybe it's a big one. Like when Edward Gibbons wrote the history of the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, he tried to say it was the fault of the Catholics for Roman Empire falling. It's because he's a Protestant. There's his bias. Okay, let's see the next history. Samuel Butler continues, "The advantage of doing one's praising of oneself is that one can lay it on thick in exactly the right places." Yep. Samuel Butler continues, "To do great work, a man must be very idle as well as very industrious." Yeah, I would say that's true. Is that look at Ben Franklin. He did a lot of great work after 38 years of age because he was rich enough to retire. For example, I want to do more work in nutrition, health, and brain biochemistry, but in order to make money, I still got to do clinical medicine. I'm grateful to clinical medicine. It pays pretty well, but, I can do with an IQ 130, 140 what I do, whereas I use my extra brain when I do this stuff, and I like it. It's more fun. It's more interesting to me, That's one reason why I wish I could get a setup where I had more leisure time to do this work, because I could figure out a lot of things. I'm close to figuring out a lot of things about the brain, but I need more time to go through all the papers. Okay, the next thing here, Samuel Butler is making fun of Carlyle. He says, it's very good of God to let Carlyle and Mrs. Carlyle marry one another, so they only make two people miserable instead of four. The history of art is a history of revivals. The three most important things a man has are his private parts, his money, and his religious opinions. So to us, that almost seems like a strange statement, his religious opinions, but that's how it was in the Victorian age. Okay, we're going to do one more person for this session of quotes. We're going to do Tony Buzan. And Tony Buzan, what's interesting about him is he's like the world expert on memory maps. So when you have to, like, let's say you want to write a book or you want to write an essay, a memory map is much better than an outline, especially when you're starting out. So a memory map just means in the center, like a circle, you write the key point of what's the title, let's say, of the book or the essay. And then coming off that, you have a line connected like a comic strip balloon to a bunch of circles about all the different ideas you want to make sure you cover in the book. And I can tell you, I write a lot of books, and I know that's the best thing to do, because then you're training yourself. What do I want to include in this book? Is there enough unique, interesting, good material that it's worth writing another book? Like I'm currently working on another book about the brain. And I had to ask myself, do I have enough material? I wrote another book about the brain about a year ago. But yeah, I got enough new material that it's worth doing. So I'm going to do it. I'm already almost done with it. And I'm having fun with it. But that's what you do. Because if you try to make an outline, the outline forces you to put everything in order. And then you start being uncertain of what order you should put them in. And then that gives you like a writer's block because you can't feel the order just yet. Versus the mind map, you just put them all in a circle. You don't have to order them yet. And that enables you to go real fast. It works. Some quotes by Tony Buzan. It's good to make an effort to become a better listener. Make your memory associations positive so you will want to return to them. That's a good one, because that was one that really helped me, because I would make mind maps for other things as well. I think it's a good study technique. You can use it as a form of self-test. After you studied something, make a mind map of it. Okay, do you really know it? Like Aristotle had said, the best indication you really know something is you can teach it to somebody else. Tony Buzan says, our brain thinks in keywords and key images, not in complete sentences. So just put keywords into the little bubbles that are connecting to the main bubble with your mind map. Keywords are better for mind maps because keywords are concise. Okay, I hope that was helpful.